Is anyone sick of seeing these yet? I kind of am, to be honest. Anyway, we're not talking about our new cover or anything today that I just did for the hell of it. We are gonna talk about how to upgrade the SSD in the Steam Machine, which I think is gonna be the most common upgrade you'll probably hear, especially if you got the 512 gigabyte version. 2 terabyte version, you don't gotta do this, but maybe you have an older SSD laying around or something. 512, although it sounds like plenty big enough for, I think, many console gamers, when it comes to the fact that these are full PC like titles on Steam, 512 runs out really, really quick. You might get 2.5 games on there with today's standards, I feel like. No, you'd actually get more like 4. But anyway, so today we're gonna talk about how to switch out the SSD and get SteamOS up and running again. Because if you switch out the SSD, you have no operating system on there anymore. And you gotta get that up and running. So today we're gonna show you how to do that step by step so that even an idiot like me can do it, because I haven't done it yet. So I'm gonna do it for the first time for you guys. You ever wonder how scam callers seem to know things about you that they really shouldn't, like your full name, your phone number, your home address, and sometimes even information about your family? All of that comes from data brokers, companies whose entire business is collecting, packaging, and selling personal information. And with major data breaches happening all the time, the information can spread even further. And the frustrating part is you don't even have to be a customer of the company that was breached. Your information can still end up circulating through third-party databases and broker networks. And that's why I've partnered with Incogni. Incogni contacts data brokers on your behalf and request that your personal information be removed from their databases. You could technically do this yourself, but with so many different brokers out there, that can quickly become a massive time sink. Now, getting started is simple. You create an account, choose whose information you want removed, authorize Incogni to act on your behalf, and then track the entire process through their dashboard. And you can see which removal requests have been sent, which ones have been completed, and it's honestly pretty surprising just how many companies may already have your information. Incogni also offers custom removals with its unlimited and family unlimited plans, and if you find your information on a People search site or other websites, you can submit it directly to Incogni, and one of their privacy specialists will handle the removal process for you. So if you'd like to take back some control over your personal information online, head to incogni.com/Jays2cents or use code Jays2cents to get an exclusive 60% discount. Okay, so a couple of things we're gonna need. Obviously your Steam Machine, your controller, you're gonna need some sort of an external drive or USB stick. Like if you have an external drive, that'd be better because it's faster than a USB stick, but at minimum, you're gonna need a USB stick. And then obviously you guys are gonna need a drive. So I just decided to go ahead and use something super realistic, super affordable, 1 terabyte 9100 Pro from Samsung. Why the heck not, right? And then obviously anything that's on the drive that you're using to install SteamOS is going to get formatted, so make sure, and same thing with the drive that you're installing, so make sure that you don't have anything important on there. So like this actually has a Windows install on it, but I don't care about it. Now, before we go about installing the drive or anything like that, we need to download the image that we're gonna be using to get SteamOS installed. So here's what we're gonna do. So whether you're aware or not, your Steam Machine actually has a desktop mode because it is still running Arch Linux. So if you hit the Steam button and then go down to Power, then you can go to switch to desktop. So a lot of people, believe it or not, didn't even know this was a thing. So you do have full capability of like a browser and like Firefox and all that sort of stuff. So you can use it like a little mini PC that's running Arch Linux. Now, and here it is. Now, obviously, because we don't have a keyboard and mouse hooked up to this, we're doing this from the perspective of you don't have another computer, you don't have a keyboard and mouse, you're truly a console guy that's trying out the Steam Machine because you're like, I want to add it to my console collection. You can use the touchpads and such here. So the right touchpad, or whatever you want to call it, what is this? Trackpad can be your cursor. The left one can kind of scroll within the window that you're already in. We've gone ahead and bookmarked where we get the image from. For you guys, we'll put it in the description of this video. And then obviously we're gonna have to prepare, it says 8 gigabytes. So I think we're gonna have to go with our external drive or something, Phil, because the biggest one I can find is a 4. So step one is we have to download the image. It says here, click, and we've already done that. That's what this Steam Deck OOBE-repair is. Now it says on Windows you can use Rufus, but because we're on Mac OS or Linux, we're gonna use Balena Etcher. Basically that is the tool that's gonna be taking the image and flashing it onto the storage device to be a bootable device that the OS can see, well, that the system can see when you boot up to install. So step one, download. Step two, put your drive in there and then use whichever Balena or Rufus, depending on what OS you're using. If you're using another like Windows machine or something, you could use Rufus, which is what we use over here on our other test benches. And then 3 is we're gonna get it flashed onto our storage. What we're gonna do after that is we are going to then have to manually install our SSD into the system once we have our drive prepared. By drive, I mean our external device. Now, some of you might be like, Jay, why can't you just clone the device? It doesn't quite work that way with this OS, with Arch, with SteamOS. It's not, you can't just do like plop it into a computer that has two M.2s and copy one to another using like Mac-Room Reflect or something like that. So this is the proper workflow for doing this. All right, so we have Balena Etcher downloaded. We have our file downloaded here. There's a missing step though from the workflow that Valve writes in here. And that is that you should, you kind of need to extract the file first. As far as we could tell, Balena was creating the partitions on the drive, because we tried this off camera, but it wasn't starting to copy any files because the file wasn't extracted. Now, we couldn't tell if it was trying to extract in the background. It takes quite a while for it to extract this file because it goes from like 3 gigs up to like 8 gigs. But anyway, our recommendation is to extract it yourself before going into Balena Etcher. So the way you would do that is you would navigate to the folder or the file, so it's right here, double click on it, and then you can use the R2 button, click, and then drag it to where you want, and then it will automatically start extracting the file. Now we've already done that, so we don't need to do it again, but that's the process before you use it in Balena. So using Balena now, flash from file, so go to your desktop if that's where you saved it to. Oops, still getting used to the controller. And then we are going to use this file right here, and you can see that's the one that's extracted because it's 7.6 gigabytes, where the one that we downloaded was like 3.2 or something around there. So now we're going to select this file. We're going to open it. We're going to select our target, which is our CF card reader right here. That is the 160 gigabyte drive right here, which is very overkill for this, but it's just what we grabbed. Select, and then flash. Yes, I'm sure it's telling you it's gonna format the card or any drive that you have pointed this to. So make sure that you are not having any data on there that's important to you. There we go. And the don't worry about the pop-up. It disappears immediately, but now it is flashing the image to this drive. And this is what we will be booting from after we switch out our drive when this is done. Okay, so for installing your SSD, make sure everything's unplugged from the back. On the back right here, you're gonna see these 2 screws. You're gonna unscrew those. And then on the bottom, you're gonna remove all 4 feet. And after you remove the feet and the back cover, you have to remove the 2 screws that are available right here that are holding the fan assembly to the chassis. And then with all 6 of those screws removed, then you can slide out the entire chassis. The entire carriage in the inside is gonna slide out, which will then give you access to the SSD that's on the bottom. Then you undo the screw for the SSD. And then because you're more than likely not using a 2230 and you're gonna be using a 2280, which is the long drive, you need to move the standoff from the forward location to the rear location so that a standard size SSD mount will mount down. Once you move the standoff, put your drive in, put your screw back in, put everything back together in the reverse order of how you took it out, and then you're ready to start the flashing process. Okay, so we're about to boot off of our install media. There's a very important note here. Remember the SSD I installed, I said had Windows install already on it? So what we were experiencing is that by just turning on the machine, we'd get a breathing blue light, no image, no nothing would happen. But if we hooked a keyboard and mouse up to it and started spamming escape, we could get to the BIOS and then we could manually point to the SSD and it would boot Windows just fine. We could also manually point to the installer and it would boot from the installer just fine. But for some reason, if there's a Windows OS on that drive and the installer SSD or drive or whatever is plugged in, it would just hang. So what we did was we went into the install media, basically formatted the drive from inside there, and now everything works as intended. It will boot directly off of the USB device that's plugged in as intended. This is the whole Linux experience, by the way, for those of you that are just like, why is he experiencing all of this? This is Linux. And I know everyone's like, the year of Linux, but Linux is never going to be better than this because of the fact that there's so many nerds working on it at different levels with different distros and different philosophies. This is unfortunately the Linux experience, okay? So hate me if you want. I don't give a fuck if you hate me that I don't like Linux for these very reasons. I digress. Let's get back to the video that we're making here today. So now, we're going to assume this was a brand new SSD that you installed off the shelf, and this should be your experience here. So we're going to hit the power button. It's going to automatically boot off of this device right here. We are going to scroll over here to wipe device and install SteamOS. So it's kind of funny that it's going to wipe it again, but that's fine. So we'll double click that. This action will wipe and reinstall OS on this device. That's fine. Proceed. It irrevocably clears all user data. I love that word. It's just so authoritative. Irrevocably. Just like you irrevocably cannot take back the time you have already spent watching this. It's been a lot of behind the scenes so far you guys haven't seen to figure out the nuances of this crap, including the fact that it looks like Valve never even tested this process themselves. Otherwise, they would have been able to see that with their OS already installed and then using Boolean Etcher with a zipped file was not able to unzip the file and do its job. So clearly Valve has never tested their own process this way. That's okay. Oh, look, it's already done. Please proceed, reboot now, or cancel to stay in the repair image. So we're gonna hit proceed. When this is done, I'm going to unplug this. Now, we should be booting entirely off of the SSD that's inside, and it should be like a brand new out-of-the-box SteamOS install. So you'd have to go in and repair your login information. If you've got it on your app, on your phone, you can do that, start downloading your games again. But this is why it would kind of suck if you had a whole bunch of game files and stuff saved on the machine already. You'd have to re-download all of those. So depending on your internet speed too, that could sort of stink. But look, this is quite literally totally out of the box experience again. So this now is as if we had just unpackaged it and installed it and plugged it in for the first time. And I think if you already have the machine, then you know what to do from here. Okay, so now if I want to see our drive size, we can go to settings, go down to storage, and look at that, 913.21 gigabytes free. Yeah, because partition, you lose some. So there you go. It's just that easy. Since we went through the process to show you the little nuances, so make sure you extract it. Make sure the SSD is empty. You can format the drive from within the installer though. You're trying to do this with controller only, and to do get into the BIOS, force which installer you want to use or which device you want to boot from, and then to do the formatting and stuff, we had to use keyboard and mouse. So the whole idea was to do this natively. I'm assuming if you have an SSD laying around somewhere, you probably already have another machine you could just use like Rufus on, which we think is going to be better processed than this. And then you would have a keyboard and mouse already. So this is just for those specifically that are like, I only have the controller and a USB stick. How do I do it? This is how you do it. All right, guys. We're coming to the end of the Steam Machine series about not mods and stuff. I still have some mods I'm doing on this, but when it comes to the software side of it, we're actually kind of impressed. The more we've been playing around with it, it's not as bad as all the reviews said. What makes it a terrible value proposition is the price to performance ratio. Can't do anything about that. This is all custom bespoke build. It's not like off the shelf parts with the exception of the SODIMMs and the storage, but it is still quite impressive what it is. And actually my kids are bring it home, because they play games all the time. And I think like Phil said, this would be an amazing remote client to use at home. So if I don't want to be upstairs in my game room using Skunkworks, I could be in the living room or something playing a game that is, controller ready. So it has its uses. Just got to figure out exactly what that looks like for me. All right, guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.